Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the books I hope to read in the month of November. How are we already on the penultimate month of 2024? I'm sorry the lighting's a little bit dark. It is still early afternoon, but it's very grey and grim here today, so it might be a little bit dark already. I guess we are working into the darker months of the year. So in November, I am going to be moving house in my personal life. I think I've mentioned it because I'm trying to sell some of my books, but yes, I am moving house, which will potentially disrupt the reading a little bit because there is a lot up in the air. There is so much up in the air at the moment. It is so a little bit stressful. Is everything going to come to fruition by the time the rent ends here and the new house is bought? Who knows if I'm going to have anywhere to live, but hopefully there'll be some moving house and it's all going to work out. So who knows quite what's going to get read over the next month, and potentially it won't be a lot, potentially, but I still have ambitions, I still have hopes, I still have like desires to read a lot. It just might not happen with the other things going on in my life. So continuing on the same theme that I've been on for the past couple of months, sequels, finales, finishing the series that I've been working on, standard for this time of year, getting myself in order to finish all my series. So I've done okay, I'd say, through the month of October. I have been working on my series quite a lot, so you'll see that in my wrap up maybe next week or so, but I do still have a big pile of sequels and series that I can continue to work on to get these goals completed by the end of the year. We do have some repeats that have been mentioned in some of my previous TBRs for these sequels, but there has been quite a lot that's been worked on. So some repeats, but some that you will notice have now like left the building of the TBR and they're going to be in wrap-ups. So I do have the Atlas Complex by Lily Blake. This is the third and final book in the Atlas series, the first book being the Atlas 6, where 6 people enter into this Alexandrian society where they are the best in class for their magic, and they go into this society to research and study, but they know that only 5 of them can continue on into the second year. And then we follow the different events that transpire. It's quite slow but engaging. Yes, this is the final book which I am on. I reread the first one back in August, then in September I read the sequel, and I have not got to this third and final one in October. I did hope to get it to it in this past week, but then I changed my mind. I flip-flopped. I was like, I'm going to read this, and then I was like, oh no, I'm reading Fury of the Gods instead. So Fury of the Gods 1, this one is just going to have to wait until November. Another sequel that I've mentioned in a few TBRs that I have not got to, but I do want to, and I feel like November is definitely the month for this one. Like, it is time, finally. It's going to have this moment, and that is The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri, the second book in the Burning Kingdom series, the first book being The Jasmine Throne. So I read The Jasmine Throne quite a while ago. I do need to do like a refresh. I need to find like a full synopsis refresh of that because I don't really want to reread, but if I have to reread, I have to reread. But I'm hoping to find a good synopsis and then dive into this sequel. I actually went to an event last night with Tasha Suri there, and she had like this whole phrase of how she best describes this book, and I was like, oh, I should I should use that, but I've forgotten it now. Sort of an Indian-inspired fantasy story, and we have a cast of characters. One of them is a princess who's been locked up in a tower. One of them is her maidservant. It's got a very interesting magic system with these trees that sort of grow out of your body and then kill you slowly. I do need to refresh myself and get back into this. I did, however, end up getting sent the third book in the series for review just in time for the event before I saw it, because it arrived in the afternoon and I went to the event in the evening, so all worked out perfectly. So yes, I would really like to get to this one in November to then get to this one in December and then wrap up this series before the end of the year is my hope. They all look so pretty together, so it's going to be hopefully this will just be a great like wrap up of this series. And then another series that I have been working on throughout this year that I would like to continue on in is the Veronica Speedwell one. So these are light historical romance mystery series. But this is A Sinister Revenge, which is book 8. So I've made some really good progress with this series throughout the year, just steadily ticking away at it. And each book is sort of an individual case that our main character, Veronica, is investigating in the Victorian setting. They're typically quite fun, easy reads, just enjoyable times. This is the last one that I own and that is available in paperback. The ninth book is out, but I think the paperback comes out early 2025. So this one will get me up to date-ish on this series, well, at least up to date on the paperbacks. I feel like I'll be quite proud once I like get this one read. Although it's been such like a steady part of my 2024 and my reading for this past year, I'm gonna be like, oh, what do I do now that I've finished Veronica Speedwell? Like, this has been just a part of the year, but it feels right that I finish it before the end of the year. I do have a couple, whilst I remember them, so I don't forget. There are some series that I have not bought yet. So it's figuring out whether I buy them in like November or December and getting those series finished, because I definitely want to prioritise getting to them before the end of the year. I just haven't got around to buying them, and then with moving house I don't know whether it's better to just wait until I've moved and then get them sent there, you know, the conundrum. So there are a couple of those, the first of those being A Darkness at Sethanon, which is the fourth book in the Magician series. So I have been reading that with my friends Fish and Sam, and I think we said maybe towards the end of November we'd read it, and that's the fourth and final book that wraps up that series. So you see, I want to, you know, get things completed before the end of the year, but that was like a very classic epic fantasy story. Starts off with our main character Pug, who is an apprentice magician, and then everything seems to go wrong. There's lots of battles and very classic medieval fantasy setting, but I found it quite cozy, which is, it's not cozy because it's not at all a cozy fantasy, but I found it quite a cozy story because of how like classically fantasy it is. So wrap that one up, and then I do have a fantasy romance series that the final book has come out, and I've mentioned it before, A Dawn of Gods and Fury, that one by K.A. Tucker. So I have read the first three books, the first book being A Fate of Wrath and Flame, where our main character Ramiria, who's brought up in New York and has lived in the modern world, gets thrust into this fantasy world in the body of somebody who has just murdered the king and queen, and she has to deal with the consequences of that, and this idea that she is a villain in this world when actually she has no idea what's going on, and how she's ended up in this position, and coming to terms with where she's at and the magic and a romantic interest with the prince of that realm. So I would like to see how that all concludes. I just haven't got to it yet. I saw it in the bookshop and it's been a little bit expensive for a paperback, so I didn't buy it because I was like, I don't want to spend that much on a paperback. It's criminal. But at some point I probably will have to like bite the bullet and then buy it. Quite a few series that I'm still hoping to wrap up over the course of November. I feel as though I've been making so much progress. Like, I have been making progress. I've been reading my series, I've been reading finales, I've been reading things, but I feel as though my list of ongoing series and finales is just not going down. And I'm like, why is there still so many? Like, all I've pretty much done all of October is read sequels and finales, and yet there is still a big pile of them. So obviously I've not done a good enough job yet. Well, I feel like I've done a good job. There's just too many of them to do it all at once. So we're just gonna have to keep rolling with this. And we'll see which ones of these end up rolling into December, because I don't get to them in November, but hopefully I'll get through another good chunk. Okay, and then just some other ideas to throw in, things that aren't in this like series finale idea. I potentially would like to get to Best Served Cold. I know I feel like I want to get to this before the end of the year. This is by Joe Abercrombie. It's the first of the standalones in the First Law universe. So I read the First Law trilogy last year, and I feel like it's been quite a while now since I read that, and I would like to continue on in this world. I feel as though the standalones don't necessarily appeal to me so much, although I have heard, you know, typically good things about them, but the next trilogy sounds really intriguing to me. So I would like to continue on working my way through this and see how I get on with this series, with this like grimness. Potentially it is quite long though. It is a bit long, well, 664 pages. So it is a little bit chunky to be adding on, but it is a standalone. So although standalone in a world that is expansive. So I just feel I would like to continue wrapping up or continue working on Joe Abercrombie. I know he's got The Devils coming out next year, but I feel as though I want to work on completing the First Law series first, and working through the backlist bibliography. So potentially this, I don't really know what it's about. I think this one's the revenge one. Not sure why they're seeking revenge or what they need to seek revenge for, and how much the characters in these standalones relate to the wider series, but I feel as though it's time for me to continue on with Abercrombie. And then another new release that I would like to get to, that I'm very excited about, is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This comes out mid-November, I believe, and it is the third book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I've read the first two books. The first book being The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which is a fantasy romance vampire story with these trials, and our human main character is going in with the ambition to seek a boon from the vampire goddess to turn herself into a vampire. And she has been raised by like one of the rulers in the vampire world, and she hates the weakness of being a human. But things, I guess, don't necessarily go to plan. I really enjoyed that trial setting, the fantasy elements, the way it sort of worked. And the thing with this series is that it's split up into duologies. So that duology is finished, and this is the start of a new duology, but with an overarching plot within the wider world. So I'm really excited to dive into this one. Very excited. I've read everything by Carissa Broadbent now. I've enjoyed it the lot. So excited for her new book. So definitely intend to get to that one when it releases. And then if that's not enough, because of course it's not enough. That's not enough things. It's probably too much, but that doesn't really, I feel as though that doesn't really touch my like other books on my TBR. My other TBR was just sitting here like waiting its turn, not getting read. So I thought potentially I could start a duology, because then I could read the first book in November and the second book in December. So I don't have that many standalones on my physical TBR now. I guess I've worked my way through them all, and I've just got loads of like first books in duologies or trilogies. And at this point it seems a bit too much to start another trilogy, but I feel as though I could start a duology and still complete it by the end of the year, so that by the end of the year I haven't impacted my series list. I do have a couple of duologies which, if they're not complete already, will be complete. So just a couple of ideas. I definitely will not get to both. I just one of them. I have Incendiary by Zoraida Cordova, which is a YA duology, which I think has a Latin American inspired setting. We've got main character Renata, who was kidnapped by the crown as a child. I think she's got this rare magic. There's a siege, and she is a rebel spy working against the crown now. I've heard some mixed things about it. I feel like with this one, I just want to give it a try. I don't know if I will have outgrown it because of its being YA and my taste as a reader now, but I think I got it a good few years ago, and I think it would just be good to try it, see how I feel. If I like it, great. If I don't, doesn't really matter, and see if it works for me or not. And if I do like it, it's a duology. I can just buy the second one and hopefully read it really quickly. Because of it being YA, it should hopefully have like quite a fast-paced writing style. I also haven't read that many Latin American inspired stories, and I feel as though I would like to read more stories that are inspired by that part of the world. One that I would like to try, whether it's in November or early next year, we shall see, but that's an idea. The other one is Talon Sister by Jen Williams. The second book and the finale in this duology actually comes out in November, which is why I thought about this one. This I think it's like a quirky genre blending fantasy from the author of The Ninth Reign, and I've read the Ninth Reign trilogy and I definitely really enjoyed it. It's a very quirky series, and I think this one is the same. It's set in like I guess European like inspired world, but we've got griffins. I don't know what time frame this is set in, but definitely one that intrigues me, and it's got a world of mythical creatures, ruthless religion, and a magical past that refuses to be forgotten. So as that sequel is coming out, I thought this one could also be a good idea as like a duology to start and finish before the end of the year. I also really like the size of this hardback. It's very cute. It's very, it's just cute. So potentially either one of these is like, if I'm getting burnt out on finishing things, I could start one of these and not feel like I've started too big of a project. It does feel quite fantasy heavy. There, it does feel a little bit like a fantasy overload potentially, but I love fantasy, so hopefully the fantasy mood just sticks with me. If not, I'll have to have a look at what romances I can pick up on audio. I am currently reading the third book in the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver, so I guess if necessary I could just pick up the fourth one in that if I need a romance break between all of this fantasy. There are some ideas for the penultimate month of 2024, and some plans. Lots of series. I don't think anyone's surprised by the amount of series that I am continuing to work on. Let me know what you're planning to read in November, if it's any of these, or if there are any new releases that are coming out that you're excited about, your November reading plans, or if you've read any of these and your thoughts on any of them. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my future videos. Bye!